Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater. Today is September 10th, 2017. There is a lot to talk about today. Most importantly, the absolute domination of it in the box office. But first, I wanted to say rest in peace to Len Wein. If you are unfamiliar with that person's name, don't really feel bad. But if you are a diehard comic books fan, you definitely know this person's name. Now, Len just passed away today at the age of 69. We don't quite know why he died just yet or what was the cause of death. However, his friends have been saying that since March there's been lots of medical issues, and that's probably what led in to his untimely passing at the young age. And I say young, I mean this, at the age of 69. But Len's legacy will live on, and it's done already a great deal for comics as well as the superhero movie genre. Back in the day, he was the co-creator of Wolverine as well as DC Swamp Thing. And you can look at DC Swamp Thing, like the movies of Swamp Thing, and think that, ooh, that's bad. But you look at Wolverine and you have to, honest to God, give Wolverine the credit as a character that has propelled superhero movies to the level that they are today. 17 years Hugh Jackman's been playing the role, and that role's co-father, died. And it is a sad day in entertainment when these kind of things happen. So to the family of Len Wein, to his friends and everyone else who was influenced by him, all I can simply say is you have my condolences, and at least we have great, wonderful things to remember him by. Okay, so jumping over into the big news of the weekend, and that is the win of It, a movie that was tracking to pull in 60 million. That was a high estimate, 60 million in its opening weekend. It has done $117 million in its opening weekend. It doubled its original estimation. It has shattered box office records, and a lot of people are scratching their heads as to what happened? How did this happen? How did this happen and Dark Tower fail? I mean, all things considered, it made more money on Friday than Dark Tower made in its entire North American run. That is sad. 51 million to 48 million is what it pulled in. That is one of those things that has a lot of people really scratching their heads. But in my opinion, it boils down to a couple of factors. One, you have a lot of diehard fans of the book. From the 1980s, that 1,200-page tome of terror. And you've also got a lot of fans of the 1990 miniseries. And as much as you could sit there and find all the videos on YouTube talking about, oh my God, the miniseries is horrible, it's terrible, it wasn't even scary. It is a cult classic. It is iconic in its own right. And even though Tim Curry, has made fun of the ending a little bit because the ending was a little bit cheesy, especially for, 1990s stop motion animation on a television miniseries budget. It still is iconic and people still go back and watch it. I've been meaning to go back and watch it again because, yes, that movie it really got to me as a kid, and I want to watch it again as an adult and just enjoy it. And that's one of the reasons why I really want to go see it, is because this new movie, feels like they pulled a lot of heavy influences from the miniseries, obviously kind of channeling the intercultural icon or the cult hit or whatever you want to call it into this film. But at the same time, they also very much are making it their own thing. And, here's the deal with this too, is this has been a good year for horror. You have Get Out, you had Split, you had The Conjuring or Annabelle 2, all do very well, all on horror movie budgets. You'd be amazed at the budget of it. It's 35 million. I don't know how much money Warner Brothers paid out in marketing for this thing, but I mean, they did a lot. At Comic-Con, they had, little Asian women in raincoats holding balloons walking around. They were all Asian women. I'm not even kidding you. Freaking people out. The story is scary. Clowns are scary. We had the huge clown craze from last year, that whole hysteria. So a lot of people were probably wanting to go and see this movie, but it worked. And it's not like the demographic was a younger demographic. The predominant people going to see this film were in the age bracket of 25 plus, because those people who are 25 plus probably grew up and had seen the original miniseries and at least knew the story. Now, people who were younger that went to go see it were probably heavily influenced by The Conjuring and Annabelle and of those films of that universe. Now, people out there have argued this on me, like, oh no, the book is just extremely popular and blah, blah, blah. The book is popular. People really like it. Stephen King is a prolific writer, But that being said, you cannot deny that the films, the Conjuring universe, pulling in $1 billion over the course of just 4 movies, and having that, the latest one about a doll that's creepy coming up not long before a movie about a clown that's creepy. So you can see where there might be a lot of that draw coming over. And I'm not going to sit there and say that was the entire point, or that was the entire draw or pull of the entire thing. But man, oh man, $117 million on a $35 million budget in September is almost unheard of. Actually, no, it absolutely positively is unheard of. It shattered records for R-rated films, which makes me happy, because I've been wanting R-rated movies to make a comeback, especially in terms of the mainstream big budget R-rated movies. Like Kingsman drops in a couple weeks. That movie came out back in 2015. That was R-rated, broke a lot of boundaries, being an R-rated movie that did very well both commercially and critically. And so we get a sequel to that. And so September is looking to be a better month for movies than almost the entirety of the summer blockbuster season, which just goes to show you that people are willing to go see movies at any time of year. They will always justify entertainment. And maybe, just maybe, the summer blockbuster season is coming to an end. And I don't know about you, but I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with that for a multitude of reasons. One is jobs. To be fair, movie theater employees pretty much work just the summer. That's when the big movies come out. That's May through generally August, around the time you get to Labor Days, when they start cutting people out. So I'd like to see people continue on to work so they can actually continue to make money. Therefore, also theaters continue to make money to continue actually showcasing these films. And the more we get them in off season, the more it actually benefits, I think, movie going as a whole, because it's not cramming it all together. And by cramming it all together, in my opinion, it pretty much boils down to a Sophie's choice. What are you going to go see? Are you going to go see movie A or movie B? They both come out on the same day. They both look good. You want to see them both. And oftentimes you get so wrapped up in trying to decide what you want to go see, you choose not to go see anything. And you just watch what's on Netflix because you've already paid for it. So ultimately, yeah, like, this is a good thing for horror movies. We know It 2, whatever they're going to call it, is going to be coming out probably next year. I'm sure at this point, Warner's has already started fast tracking production on the sequel to give us the conclusion to this already epic story. And we know it's going to focus a lot on its origins, as well as, I think, having more to do with the losers clubs through flashbacks. Clearly the kids had chemistry. Clearly the kids are a big draw, as well as Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. So we'll definitely have to wait and see what happens. But, to Warner Brothers and New Line, you took a gamble and you freaking walked ahead big time. All right, jumping over into Disney streaming app news. We've all been hearing about this now for a while. Disney's pulling its content out of Netflix, and it's going to be launching its own streaming app service. I myself have been very critical of this, thinking it's probably not the best idea. Many people out there have disagreed with me. They've been like, no, people want this kind of content, children, parents, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you're not wrong. People will, in fact, want this kind of content, and putting all of Disney's works into one location and allowing me to stream it anytime I want is something that I will, in fact, probably pay for. Amazon's been cutting a lot of its shows that I like. They just canceled The Last Tycoon, so that's another show on there that I'm not going to be able to go back and watch. And they want another Game of Thrones, and they're not going to get it. But Disney, on the other hand, might start creating original content for this streaming app. Never mind the fact that I have a daughter on the way, and I could sit there and get this whole thing in 2019 and race her on, like, Goofy Movie and maybe Heavyweights and other obscure 90s not obscure, but just 90s Disney's films that you're not going to be able to find as readily available these days, as well as all the Pixar stuff as well. So Disney, in this particular venture, wants it to be profitable. They have a lot of content to put up there. They're going to need to build a system to run it, and I'm sure they absolutely can. But when independent analysts have come in and looked at the upfront costs, the potential costs of what it might take, as well as looking at the model Netflix has used and how popular they are, right now Netflix currently has 100 million monthly users. 50 million of those are in the United States alone. And I mean, if you just look at $10 a month on 50 million people, they're pulling in lots of money. They're pulling in a lot of money. They have a huge market share. And as I've said before, when I'm being critical of this app, the market share does also imply, Hulu and Amazon and a few other places. And people aren't going to want to have multiple services. So they're going to probably drop Hulu, which I do think only has about 8 million active users. And Amazon, I think may have more or less. I'm not too sure the numbers on Amazon, but they'll probably drop one of those in order to get Disney. But here's the kicker. Disney would need, and this is from an analyst in the industry, in order to break even, just break even, they need 32 million monthly subscribers at $9 a pop. So Disney, in order to bring in people to watch this, are going to have to release at cheaper than Netflix, right? In order to get people to come on over, which is what we all expect anyway. I mean, look at MoviePass right now. They're going to bring in a whole bunch of cheap deals just to get people in the door, get them in the door, and then eventually raise it up to that price. And they probably will eventually increase it all the way up to $15 a month once they've hit at least a decent amount of threshold. Like, once they've probably hit that 32 million is when they're going to start looking at increasing it in order to turn a profit. Or at that time, when movie theaters are having so much issues trying to get people in the door to watch anything, they might just start making content directly for this app, which would then cut out the middleman, and they'll become like, their own version of Netflix, which they might actually do. So 32 million people is going to be some people out there would say it's not hard. It's Disney. No. It's going to take time. Netflix has been around for 10 years on consoles. It took a lot of time to get there. And while Disney might have the content, they still release everything in theaters, and people still rush out to go see it in theaters. Look at Beauty and the Beast, $1 billion in a March release. Cars 3 did very well. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 did very, very well. So they know how to make money in theaters, and they're not going to strive. They're not going to move away from that. But those people may not want to head over just to the Disney app just yet. It's an uphill battle. And it's one that I would assume that over the course of probably the first 2 years, if they don't break the 20 million subscriber mark in the first 2 years, they are probably going to end up canceling it. It's just, I don't think they're going to burn money on it forever. Maybe 2 to 5 years. It's definitely a service. I want to see what they do with it. I want to see what they can provide me in value above, let's say, Netflix for original content. But 32 million just seems like an insanely tall order. All right, jumping over into Sony's Marvel Cinematic Parallel Universe thingy, whatever it is that they're doing. News is coming out right now that the Venom movie that no one asked for, that as far as I can tell, no one really, really, really wants, but they're just kind of cautiously optimistic to see if it's any good, has been delayed. It's been delayed by a month. Production was supposed to begin pretty much right now, right? Early September 2017 for an October release date of 2018. And then it got pushed back to the end of the month. And then now it's been delayed another month in order to get things all locked and loaded for the film. If you want my honest opinion, the reason why this is probably being delayed is because they're probably really desperately trying to get a script done, or they're trying to work a deal with Tom Holland to see if they can work with Marvel to get Tom Holland to come on over. I mean, even though I believe the original deal that they had was like Tom Holland could go to the other movies, and then characters from the MCU could go to Sony, but not vice versa. It might be something to come on up. I don't know if the deal's changed at all, but that's what I remember it being. I just find it really funny, though, that the movie's going to be delayed. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets delayed yet again and pushed to early 2017 production or something. They're going to keep delaying it probably until Amy Pascal is able to work the right deal with Sony as a way to bring it in, right? As a way to bring it in. But at the same time, we're coming out of, I do believe at the end of this month is the beginning of a new quarter, right? With a new fiscal quarter. And I've been saying this for a while, and I just kind of want to, reiterate this. Sony had a $1 billion loss last year. Well, $981 million write down from just, Sony Pictures. And they're not making lots of money. Baby Driver did well this year. Spider-Man Homecoming did well this year. Dark Tower, which was a Sony movie, crashed and burned. The Emoji Movie did well for its budget, but didn't do gangbuster numbers or anything else like this. And Sony has not turned as much of a profit as they've wanted. And I've said for the longest time that Amy Pascal making that deal with Sony to bring in Spider-Man has always had a greater game at play. And that greater game is to get Sony to basically sell the comic book rights back to Marvel. Or, and this is an out there speculation, and I have no proof of this whatsoever. But my working theory, what my gut tells me is that Disney's preparing to make an offer for Sony Pictures. Now, Sony as a whole, as a company, is not making as much money as they used to. Their PlayStation department is, I think, their most profitable department, and they are probably looking for ways to consolidate their losses. Right now, the movie industry is not doing for them what they want, and they could probably sell off Sony Pictures, Sony Television, and Sony Home Entertainment or whatever, and then start sectioning those off, or they'll just sell it all to Disney, and Disney would buy it. In a heartbeat, Disney would buy it. And like I said before, when Sony was financially hurting and they went back to Marvel and they were like, hey, do you guys want to buy the Spider-Man merchandising rights back? You could tell that this particular deal had already been established. And now that we know officially that Spider-Man's in the MCU because of what happened after the Sony hack, that deal, in my opinion, is all but done. So we'll have to wait to see what happens. I could totally be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will totally admit that I'm wrong, but that's what my gut's been telling me for a while. So if the Venom movie's being delayed, if it gets consistently delayed, I think it's delayed in order to push it till after that deal is done, so then they can bring characters from the MCU over into Venom and then further make that part of the MCU. Okay, guys, so finally today, we're going to be talking about James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and Rocket's origin story, because all three of those things came out of HasCon in Philadelphia, where James Gunn was there, and he was talking about the movie. In fact, well, this is what he said about the future of Rocket in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He says, as you know, the MCU is one way of processing these characters. 616 is a different one. We're going to learn more about where Rocket comes from in the coming sagas. It's going to be a little different from the comics. We already know a lot about where he came from. It's a little bit more horrible than what it is in the comics when you come down to it. We will learn more about that. Now, it's a vague statement, but there's something there worth pulling out there. Some people have already run the article saying, oh, we're going to learn more about his history in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Which I would say, yeah, they're going to definitely establish parts of that. But he says coming sagas. All right, coming sagas. That tells me that that we're going to get a lot more Rocket in Phase 4. Now, if you go back to when Guardians 2 came out a few months ago, and you learned more about them winding down Phase 3, ending out this first chapter in the MCU saga, and going to like what's going to be the next 10 years of the franchise, we know that James Gunn is effectively leading that charge. It's going to go more cosmic, and then also conclude with a huge team-up movie. That's going to kind of be their thing going forward, having 10 years of movies, establishing new characters, establishing big events, and then having it all come to a head at the end, and then moving on to something else. So with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it kind of basically kicks off that it's going to kind of kick off the next 10 years is what they're saying. And so having the coming sagas for Rocket Raccoon tells me that Rocket's going to appear in a lot of this, which just makes sense. He's an easy character. I mean, Bradley Cooper, still a young guy, can still do the voice. You get, Sean Gunn to come in and do the mocap for him on set, so on and so forth. You can easily have him and Groot go and be in many movies and cameo in many movies, and it's not going to require as big or as massive of a contract as, well, let's say, any of the other human actors on screen in the Guardians of the Galaxy or the MCU as a whole. You're not going to get Bradley Cooper demanding $40 million to make a cameo appearance or to be part of another Guardians of the Galaxy film or another, Captain Marvel movie or something. He's just not going to do it. So it really is, it's cheaper for them to kind of go this route. These are already established characters. They're fan favorite characters. And they could probably sit there and really, really, really sell these stories going into the next phase. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Rocket and Groot movie. I'm very certain that we are at one point going to get that. I'm very curious to see what Disney has coming down the pipeline as a result of this. But him saying that we're getting the coming sagas and get to know more about his past and also his future is going to definitely, they're definitely banking on Rocket and Groot going forward. You can tell that they know that there's money making opportunities there, merchandising, and they're very much going to want to capitalize on that. So hope you like Rocket Raccoon, because based off of just that one line, and I know I'm speculating, but I'd be willing to bet some money on it, we're going to get a whole lot more of that team over the course of the next 10 years. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode of $3 Theater. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys learned a couple things about what's going on in Hollywood. Be sure to leave your comments below and definitely subscribe and check back pretty frequently for these longer form catch-ups of what's going on in Hollywood and whatnot. And I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic day. Peace out.